Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first, you call them episodes? Do you call podcast episodes? Do you call them episodes or, huh, webisodes? Podisodes? No, that sounds gross. I guess episode. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of the John Talks About Stuff podcast. I'm your host, John B., and today we're going to talk about what in the world this show is. Well, let's see here. We'll start with how I got the idea. So I do video production work for other people, and I especially do a lot of video work for my church. And one day I was doing an animation job for somebody. I do 2D animation as well. I've got a few of those on my YouTube channel. And so anyways, I was working on this one job. It was about a 2 to 5 minute animation. And you know how if you understand how animation works, that can take a long time. That one in particular, I was the only animator on, so it took almost a year to make, maybe like 2 months shy of a year. And so anyways, that one took a while. And typically while I animate, I don't like to just animate in the quiet. Animation's too tedious to just sit there quietly, for too long. I learned that pretty fast. So while I animate, I might listen to music every now and then, but I really enjoy listening to like discussion videos. I like to hear, just people kind of talk about, things that, obviously things that interest me, like movies. Or animation, or video games, video games that I like. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube out there of people just kind of talking about these kind of things, but unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of them that are, that are wholesome, to say the least. There's not a whole lot of them out there where, I would say, yeah, I'll let my nieces listen to this with me. You know what I'm saying? And so I got to thinking, I was like, I really wish there were more of these types of videos. I've just recently found a few podcasts and people on YouTube that I really like to listen to discuss about things because they're very they're clean, and also the big deals is that they talk about things that I like. And so I got to thinking, I really wish that there were more of these out there for people like me who who do video work and need to listen to somebody talk about stuff. And so that's why that's where I got the idea to make this one, and I literally called it John Talks About Stuff. Or like, another thing that kind of solidified me working on this was I was in the car one day. I was driving. I guess we were on our way back to the house with me and my wife, and I don't know exactly what we were talking about or what I was talking about rather. One thing about like a piece of media or something that I really like, if any of that gets brought up, I could just sit there and talk about it for hours, and I was just rambling about something, if, it might have been about a video game or a movie that I like or something like that. And I just stopped. I caught myself and I was like, wow, I apologize. I said, I probably need some sort of outlet to kind of, let all this out, so that way I don't just talk my wife's ears off, for lack of a better term. and so that's where this podcast came from. That's where John Talks About Stuff was born. If you see my YouTube channel, for those of you who joined me on my live stream, I did a couple of those where I just sat there and recited VeggieTales. And how that started, I said on there before that Like I just said, there's a lot of movies and things like that that I really enjoy, and I could just talk about them for hours. I could also sit there and recite the whole thing, just from memory, usually. And so like one day I woke up and I got to thinking, I was like, is there like a Guinness World Record for something like that, like for reciting a piece of media, like a movie or a show or something? And I looked into it and I didn't see anything like that. And so I was like, what if I just did that? And I saw where you had to have like, I was looking at the requirements. I actually did some research on that I just got up early one morning and I was drinking my coffee and I was looking uh, at Guinness World Record requirements for submissions, and I saw where like, you needed some sort of like solid proof and evidence that you did this. And I was like, so how can I prove that I could recite this show or a movie or whatever? How can I prove that I can recite this from, start to finish, all from memory? Like, I'm not reading off of a script. I'm not listening to the show. Like, nobody's playing it. I'm not, it's not on a TV somewhere. I don't have an earpiece in. I was like, how can I prove that I'm doing all this, all from memory? And I was like, hey, live streams are a thing. So I'll do it a live stream. That's probably like the best way to kind of prove that, that I'm legit about it. And so then my wife, she walks in and I was like, babe, I'm going to live stream myself reciting the entirety of the first episode of VeggieTales tonight. And she was like, okay. And so that's where that started. I had her cracking up that morning because she was like, do it. She was like, prove it. And I was like, okay. And then I proceeded to do so. And I probably got about halfway and she was like, okay, I get it. I've been doing that for years. I've actually been reciting things like that for years. I grew up on a tour bus, actually. About half of my childhood was on a tour bus, and that's because my parents are Christian country singers. They go by the name Twice Robin. Fun fact, if you didn't know, both my parents' names are Robin, and that makes the Banks angry. My dad's name is Robin, and my mom's name is Robin, and so they called themselves Twice Robin. And so they travel. I mean, we've traveled all over the place. And so I spent half my childhood on a tour bus. And at the time, DVDs weren't a thing, or at least I don't think they were. Maybe they were just coming out. Like I'm trying to remember. We had a little TV. It was the cool TV that had the VHS player built into it. Like that was the coolest thing. And a Nintendo 64, but and I'll talk about that maybe another show. But I'm focusing on the VHSs now. The VHS tapes I had, obviously, when you're on a tour bus, and you've got this 3 to 4 year old kid, you need something to entertain him, and so I had a little collection, a little library of VHS tapes that I watched, and I watched those over and over and over again, particularly, VeggieTales, Toy Story, The Emperor's New Groove, Kipper. Does anybody remember Kipper? Kipper was awesome. Kipper the dog, not a frog. I mean, I had these shows. I had JJ the Jet Plane. Just Google it. That's all I can say about it. Just Google it. But anyways, VeggieTales was obviously my favorite of all of them. It and Toy Story were favorites. I watched Toy Story actually till the videotape broke. It broke inside the VHS player, and we had to get a new one. And then I think I watched that one till it broke, and then got a new one. It was a rinse and repeat sort of thing. but I watched VeggieTales and Toy Story so much, I just thought, what that would be the obvious candidate for me to do a reciting video on. Um, Actually, in fact, the other night, or I guess it was last week, um, Toy Story was actually on, and my mom was there, and my wife were there, and Toy Story was on the TV, and I wasn't even. I saw it was on, and I wasn't even looking at the TV. It was the scene where they were in the gas station, and I turned away from the TV, and I just started like mouthing everything they were saying and doing the motions and everything, and they were just cracking up. Um, but yeah, so I chose to do the first episode of VeggieTales. Figured I didn't need to do anything too long. So I chose a 30-minute VHS tape, and you guys seem to really enjoy it. I started it. I started the live stream, and then was like, man, who's even gonna watch this? I was like, I mean, I think I tweeted it that morning to whoever saw it, and I just said, hey, I'm gonna do this thing, and then I turn it on. I did it on my phone. I had it propped up, and I don't I had never done anything like that before. Nothing like that, anyways. And as soon as it came up on my phone, it was like, you've got like 15 people waiting, or no, it started two. It was like there were two people waiting. I was like, two people are waiting to watch this. And I was like, is it like my mom or somebody? Is it my parents? And then like I turned it on, and then it's people that I've never met. And then that escalated to about 15 people, and it turns out that there's this big VeggieTales fan base that I knew nothing about. I thought that was pretty cool, actually. And um and so that was just a lot of fun, reciting that. I put on a blindfold so that way nobody could, everybody could see that I wasn't watching anything. I couldn't see through the blindfold. Some people even wondered. I said one line wrong, one of them, and then I went back and corrected myself. And I remember afterwards I looked back at the live chat, and I watched that moment over again, and somebody was like, can he see through the blindfold? Because it turned out people were correcting me on the live chat, but no, I couldn't see it. I saw it afterwards, or my wife told me about it afterwards. She was looking at live chat on a laptop, off camera. I couldn't see the corrections. Nobody was telling me. I was just going through it. So yeah, that was a thing. I remember I got stuck on one line, like just bad. One line on the first one. It was like the beginning of Daniel in the Lion's Den or something. I think maybe I had to have a line fed to me there. I don't remember if it actually got fed to me or if I just finally remembered it. But no, I didn't have any earpieces on. I couldn't see through the blindfold. I didn't have it playing on a TV somewhere. That was all just straight from memory. And then about a week later, I was at a Best Buy, and I get this notification that I was tagged in, and somebody had taken the audio from where I sang the theme song to VeggieTales and put it over the instrumental of the show's intro, and they basically just made the VeggieTales intro, but with my voices replacing the other characters. So that was a lot of fun. That was hilarious. So be sure to go check that out. The guy's name was his username is Mr. Lunch. So it's like a play on Mr. Lunt, but it's Mr. Lunch. So go check that out. I think it just says like John B sings VeggieTales or Wounded Chicken Studios, something like that. Oh, and don't worry, guys. Water Bottle is here. Water Bottle, the reoccurring character. Everybody everybody really enjoyed Water Bottle. He's a great guest to have on every time I do a video. He really helps me out. So I just wanted everybody to know Water Bottle is here. So don't worry. Okay, so anyways, there was this one time in high school. I guess it was in like 11th grade, I think. And I was in science class, and my science teacher, I won't say his name because he might not like it, so we'll just call him Mr. White. And so anyways, my science teacher, he had this picture of Woody. I think somebody drew it for him. It was really good. And it was hanging up on his bulletin board by his desk. And I came in, and I'm trying to remember how it got started. I think I just walked in and I said, like, I said something about it. I was like, hey, that's pretty cool. And he was like, yeah, I'm the biggest Toy Story fan out there. I bumped the mic. He said, yeah, I'm the biggest Toy Story fan in the world. And I was like, excuse me? And I was like, how dare you? And he was like, yeah, I could probably recite that movie all the way through. And I was like, well, I bet I could do it backwards. And he was like, well, do it. And then somebody, one of my friends actually told me, he was like, oh no, you got to start it. Like at first I was just going to do the words. And then somebody was like, no, you got to do all the like mannerisms and gestures and things like the, how it ends, the Buzz and Woody, like kind of sad chuckle, almost awkward moment. And so then I corrected myself and I did that. So he was like, do it. And I was like, okay. I went ahead and I started doing it backwards, and he was like, okay. I get it. You can stop. And I was like, just saying, don't at me, bro. Don't at me, Mr. Not White. I forgot to mention, and I just remembered. In fact, I've been doing this stuff since, like I said, I've been watching this stuff, on a bus, just on loop over and over on a VHS player. I've been watching this stuff since I was, 3. It turns out I've been reciting this stuff. That live stream, earlier when I said that I had never really done anything like that before, that's not entirely, I guess now that I think about it, that's not entirely true. Because a while back, I had just recently thought about it. A while back, a VHS tape surfaced of a home video that my parents took. And I was about 3 years old, and I was about 3 or 4. I think they said I was 3, and I was reciting a full episode of VeggieTales. So that's not that. So it was even VeggieTales. So it goes even that far. And I believe it was like Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space, and I had my little Larry Boy toy. And I was going through the whole episode. I was going through the whole scene where the Fib has Junior and Larry Boy, and I think Junior was played by a Duracell AA battery, because I didn't have a Junior doll. But yeah, I was going through the whole thing. If I find the tape in time, I'll include the video. I'll include it in here. I'll put it in here somewhere so you can hear that. Or if you're on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put it up on the screen. So like I said, I've got a lot of stories to tell. I've got a lot of, I could talk about, different types of media all day. So anyways, other things to expect, like special guests. While Water Bottle is one of, is always going to be one of our special guests. Don't worry. We'll also have other special guests on the show. I didn't plan on doing this whole show alone. So while I also really enjoy movies, television, animation, video games, different types of media, things like that. Might also do some like recommendations. I'm recommending, I'll recommend some things that so maybe some obscure like shows or games or something, stuff you might like that you didn't think you needed in your life until you heard this show. Just like this show, you didn't know you needed it in your life until you just heard it today. We'll also be doing listener suggested topics. So if you have a question or a topic that you'd like us to go over on this show, whether it's me or me and a special guest, or even if you have a question for Water Bottle, maybe he'll answer it. I don't know. If he does, I'd probably throw it away. If Water Bottle, never mind. Don't send Water Bottle questions. If the Water Bottle answers, a live rebuking on the podcast. Okay, what was I saying? Oh, if you have, we'll be doing listener suggested topics. So, okay, I can do this. So, if you have a question or a topic that you would like to suggest for the show, you can contact me on Twitter at johnb_WC. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'd like to go over our next segment on this show. It is called That Weird Thing That I Found at the Flea Market. Me and my wife enjoy going to flea markets, and there's a lot of neat stuff you find over there. And while there's some cool stuff over there, there's also a lot of really weird stuff that you find at a flea market. And we found quite a few. And we find quite a few on almost on a bi-weekly basis. There's just, you just can't get away from it. People, sometimes you wonder, people had this in their house at one point or what? And then you'd really be interested in the story behind those things, So anyways, let's start off with a classic. It is a classic weird thing I found at the flea market. Me and my wife were walking down, and we found this what has now become one of my favorite reaction memes, and I call it Smug Frog. Now, if you're watching it, I'll flash it on the screen, but it is this, if you're listening on like the Apple podcast or something, this is probably your least favorite segment then, but I'll tweet it. I'll tweet it afterwards. How about that? That'll fix this segment. How about afterwards, I will tweet the picture of the weird thing I found at the flea market that we talk about on here. That's what we'll do. Okay. Figured it out. Okay. So that's what we'll do. So I'll tweet it right after. Be sure, if you want to see the weird thing I found at the flea market, you can follow me on Twitter at johnb_WC. And you can go there and use it for your own reaction meme purposes. Okay, so anyways, it's just this little toy frog thing. I don't know if it was supposed to do anything. I don't recall finding a button on it or anything, but it just, I don't know, just the way, I didn't like, it's just the look it's giving you, it's just like, hey, you know, and I'm like, man. So anyways, that is Smug Frog. Another one, I believe we have a picture of it. I got it somewhere. I'll flash it on the screen, or I'll tweet it as well. So there's this one booth in the flea market that we go to a lot, and it's just this one booth of nothing but like metal art, and it's kind of cool, but it's just like, it's not something you see every day. And so they'll take like just like scraps of metal and they'll make like statues out of it. But they usually make like characters out of it. Like this one of SpongeBob. I'll tweet it. It's just, and he's got a little jellyfish net too. Somebody made this little metal statue of SpongeBob using like little scraps of metal and like bolts and things, and I just thought that was kind of neat. That was kind of strange. They also have other ones. If I'm not mistaken, one time they had like a Shrek. I think it was something like Shrek. I wish I had a picture of that. They had one of Mickey Mouse. They had like spiders and giant ants and things like that. So lastly, there's my personal favorite strange thing I found at the flea market is browless bows. Everybody give it up for browless bows. I was walking down one aisle of the flea market, and there he was. Just browless bows, just kind of chilling up there. And I was like, this is amazing. And so Browless Bows is actually here with us today. Come on, everybody, give him a hand clap. Browless Bows is here in the studio with us today. All right, I guess that's it for today. If you have a suggestion for a segment you think sounds fun, you can tweet at me once again at johnb_wc, or you can email me at johntalksaboutstuffshow@gmail.com. Alrighty, guys. Well, I guess that'll be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of this show. I'll talk to you guys next time. See ya.